This story, man, when it hit this morning on the right, everybody was talking about it.
Yes. How can you pardon yourself?
How can you pardon yourself, right? And we're talking about the news we got. The New York Times did a great story about President Trump discussing with advisors about granting maybe some preemptive pardons, at least according to those in the know. We've also been reporting that U.S. prosecutors are investigating whether several individuals offered political contributions in exchange for a presidential pardon, again, according to an unsealed court document. So someone who has a front seat to this, and you talked to him earlier, is Erik Larson.
Yeah, we talked to Erik on Quick Take earlier today, and the big part of the conversation that we focused on was the idea that what is the precedent for doing this, for pardoning people preemptively?
Yeah.
And in fact, it exists.
Which is kind of wild. All right, so let's get into the history. Erik Larson, standing by patiently, U.S. legal reporter at Bloomberg News, on the phone in Brooklyn. So what is the precedent for this, Erik?
Well, it really is. It is unprecedented. No president has ever tried to pardon themselves before. Nixon sort of came close after the Watergate scandal, but he was advised that that's not something that could be done. Of course, he was pardoned by Gerald Ford, but that claim by the DOJ that a president can't pardon himself was never tested in court. So it really does remain to be seen whether that old DOJ advice stands. And of course, Trump, it seems like a million years ago now, but in 2018, Trump tweeted that he had a, quote, absolute right to pardon himself. And certainly there are legal experts who back that up. There are others who disagree, but it really hasn't been tested yet. So we really just don't know.
What about when it comes to pardoning members of his own family if they haven't yet been charged with a crime?
Again, that is something that is within the realm of the president's power to pardon. It is a very vast power. There's not a lot of rules in there. And as long you can't pardon, a president can't pardon someone for crimes that they have yet to commit. You can't just grant someone a get out of jail free card for life. But if there are crimes that they may have already committed, even if they haven't been charged yet, for example, potentially his children, then that is something that he could potentially get a preemptive pardon for. The risk there would be that the president would have to lay out in some sort of document what it is that he believes his people would be charged with.
That's what's kind of wild. Like, right? Don't you want to see that document? Like, well, just in case my daughter gets charged with this or something, right? Like, you kind of, here's the list, everybody.
Yeah, you're giving a lot away about how you feel about somebody's guilt if you're pardoning them before they've been charged with something. I mean, pardons are used for criminals.
Right. But President Trump has a way around that, I would think, in that he has called all of these investigations involving him and others a witch hunt. There's a large portion of his base and other fellow Republicans who buy into that and might view a preemptive pardon as just a way to get around corrupt Democratic investigations. Not that that's what they are, but you could see that he might spin it that way and that a lot of people might actually accept it, given what we've seen the last few years.
Well, and I do wonder, the prosecutors who are looking into this, who are these people specifically? And I just wonder in terms of leanings, as kind of friends of Trump or not.
Well, I mean, we've seen already that Trump is pretty ready to give out pardons to friends. As far as his family is concerned, really the biggest potential threats that you see legally are coming out of state investigations, particularly New York State and the New York Attorney General, Letitia James. Mm-hmm. But of course, a president's pardon doesn't cover state crimes. So there's, even with all of this talk about a preemptive pardon for his family, that could potentially relate to federal crimes, perhaps things that were outlined in the Mueller report, obstructions of justice potentially, or something like that. But really, there's a big area of exposure there with the New York State crimes as well.
So what is the threat that President Trump and people close to him face from states like New York?
Well, the New York Attorney General has been investigating the Trump Organization over potential bank and insurance fraud, essentially misvaluing large assets in order to get some benefit, a tax benefit or insurance benefit or bank benefit. These were allegations that were laid out by the president's own former lawyer and fixer, Michael Cohen, in congressional testimony. That sort of kicked off this New York investigation. There was a big fight over the state's subpoenas earlier this year. And just a month or two ago, Eric Trump, the president's son, was forced to testify under oath. He was deposed as part of this investigation. No one has been accused of any wrongdoing in that investigation. It's just a civil probe. But nevertheless, it does illustrate the kind of risk that you see they could potentially face, whether it's with the New York Attorney General or the Manhattan District Attorney or whatnot.
Do you anticipate we're going to get some news on actual or additional pardons soon, or is it going to be kind of in the 11th hour, in January? What are we expecting?
Well, I don't have any inside information on that, but I would have to say, just based on what we've seen about with this president, is that we'll probably see, this is just a guess, but we'll see a flood of pardon activity potentially that could be right up into the last days or hours of his time in office, which isn't unusual, but given the way that Trump has used the pardon to create sort of controversy, you could see that it would be some big news when it happens, clearly.
Eric, just quickly, can ever a presidential pardon be questioned?
I think that it can. When you're talking about pardon for whether or not it's too broad, some investigators might want to rein in to say, well, this pardon doesn't actually cover this behavior, as we said, the pardon of oneself, that remains to be seen. So if there's going to be a test of the pardon power, I could see it coming in the next few months.